What is to become Helene is now forecast to become a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico in just the next few days, with direct impacts to portions of the Caribbean and the Gulf Coast. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. It's nice to see you on a Monday. I hope you're doing well. Coming up in this very important video, I've got all the newest information on potential tropical cyclone number 9, which is forecast to become Hurricane Helene and is actually forecast to now become a major hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. I waited to make this video until after the 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory on this Monday for the National Hurricane Center. So I've got all the newest details for you, all the newest model data. We're going to get into that. We'll look at other areas of interest as well, tropically, what's been happening in your area. And of course, we'll get into the forecast as well. You know, I love to hear from you guys. I know this is a big video. If you have a specific question about the forecast, have a concern, drop it in the comment section below. I'm happy to answer that while you're down there. Just let me know what's been going on in your area. Just want to drop a hi. I appreciate that as well. Let's get started. Again, recording this just after the 5 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center. So now we have a second track. And I got to tell you, all the new information is no good. We'll first of all start what's happening right now in the Northwest Caribbean, and then we'll just go chronologically in time as Helene develops and gets into the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, it is still just potential tropical cyclone number 9. I'm starting to see a consolidation at the low levels, south and west of Grand Cayman. That being said, it's still a fairly lopsided storm. All the numbers that you see are wind gusts in miles an hour over the last 6 hours. So we've had some near 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts on the southeast tip of Cuba, a 40-mile-an-hour wind gust in Grand Cayman, and we've had some heavy rain and tropical downpours in these areas as well. When I show you the visible satellite imagery, you'll really start to see that turn right here, just southwest of Grand Cayman, right where the icon is. That's where we're going to start to see that consolidation of those low-level circulations. So likely we're going to get a depression soon and then tropical storm Helene within the next 24 hours. So we will have a tropical storm moving northwest into portions of the Northwest Caribbean and then into the south side of the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll have to deal with some very heavy rain for some of these areas and some flooding threat, and the opportunity then for some tropical storm force winds, especially towards the tip of Quintana Roo, towards Cancun and Cozumel, and the western tip of Cuba. I do have the ability to bring on the newest advisory. So I think that's just the simplest thing to do here. Let's zoom into this and then go over this advisory together for a little bit. First of all, right now, the center is 105 miles or 170 miles to the southwest of Grand Cayman. It is moving to the north-northwest at 7, pressures down to 1,007 millibars. So again, here is Grand Cayman. There's your 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. The biggest thing here is just to talk about the hurricane watches. That's Cabo Cotoche to Tulum, Mexico, there in the Yucatan, and then the Cuban province of Pinar del Rio. All right, so those are your hurricane watches that are currently in effect. And basically, it's these areas right here, closest to where we're going to see Helene move as it gets a little bit stronger and attains tropical storm strength. But again, not much farther down the road here, you do have the Hurricane Center making this a Category 1 hurricane. So it's plausible as it moves off of and just west of Cuba that it becomes a hurricane even before it emerges into the southern Gulf of Mexico. All the rings that you see, by the way, are the computer painting on what it expects to see tropical storm force winds in those areas in blue. So notice that could skirt Cancun and Cozumel, and that could go a little bit deeper into western Cuba as well. Then you have a tropical storm warning for Rio Lagartos to Tulum, Mexico, the Cuban provinces of Artemisa, Pinar del Rio, and the Isle of Youth. We do have new tropical storm watches in effect for the Dry Tortugas and then the lower Keys south of the 7-mile bridge. Okay, so those are the newest watches and warnings from the 5 o'clock advisory. All right, let's talk about what's going to be happening in the short term in these areas. Back over to the infrared satellite imagery. We've had some decent tropical downpours from time to time in Jamaica. It was a little bit more concentrated overnight and into the morning hours, but there is just rich tropical moisture in play, and at any point in time we could see more healthy downpours. We did have a flash flood watch in effect for Jamaica. It's at least as of this recording been allowed to expire, but at any point in time, there could be additional flash flood or flood watches and warnings issued for Jamaica. So keep an eye out for that. This is an area that could still see several inches of rain out of the developing Helene, even as it moves north and west. Obviously, we're on the east wet side of the storm here. We're seeing some heavier rain move back into portions of Haiti from Port-au-Prince and over towards Lacaille, portions of Cuba, and then obviously the Cayman Islands right now could be very wet. There is a flood warning for the Cayman Islands all the way through Thursday. Okay, that means locally heavy rainfall, a lot of low-lying areas, not a lot of areas above sea level here in the Grand Caymans. So some areas that could get 4, 6, 8 inches of rain could see some of those problematic flooding issues over the next several days. Now, the rainfall right now is much more cut off on the western side. There's not a ton of drier air, but we just really haven't seen this completely wrap up as of yet and then expand. Everything's still been off towards the east. Let me show you a couple of pictures that I got for today. This is from Selena Membrino. She lives on Grand Cayman, sent me this shot. This is a very, very common sight across the Cayman Islands for today, with really deep, dark clouds, a lot of tropical moisture. So you got those darker clouds, and then it's just pouring from time to time. And this trend is going to be with us here over the next several days. She then sent me this photo from Guanaja, Honduras, which is an island off of the northern coastline of Honduras, just east of Roatan. It's from her sister. She didn't give me her sister's name, but that's okay. I'll show you this photo anyway. And again, you can see those dark clouds moving through and some tropical downpours there. Not as prominent today in Honduras as it is in Grand Cayman, but again, it's going to be wet weather here. Again, friends, I appreciate you liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to Meteo Mundo. If you want these tropical updates, remember it's always free here. Thank you for sharing this with your family and friends, anyone who thinks you're going to get something out of this video. And again, appreciate your support. The membership's just 99 cents a month. The super thanks. You can find other ways to support me here at the channel in the description below. So now we're going to kind of get into what's going to be happening forecast-wise. You are looking at the newest cone from the National Hurricane Center. Note again that we now have a Category 3 on the board, the official forecast for the National Hurricane Center, becoming a Category 3 with winds of 115 miles an hour on Thursday, before it's expected to make landfall somewhere in the central or eastern panhandle, Apalachicola Bay, maybe as far south as the Big Bend, Cedar Key areas. That's kind of the areas that we're looking for here along the west coast of Florida. But there's going to be more impacts obviously coming as Helene develops and works its way up to the north. So the first thing we're going to look at is going to be the reflectivity, the rainfall here on the GFS model. I am going to drop a couple of things because it's just going to be a little bit easier to see. I'm going to drop the wind radii, and we're going to watch that the GFS model is close to the center line of the newest cone from the National Hurricane Center. So as far as track goes, it is just east of the center. It's a little bit more towards the Big Bend, Nature Coast area here, not as far south as Crystal River, but a little bit closer to places like Cedar Key and Horseshoe Beach. You can see that right over the Cross City area. That would be landfall on the model around 6 o'clock Thursday evening, okay? Today is the 23rd, Thursday is the 26th. So this is the GFS model as far as that goes. I'm going to bring on, like I did yesterday, the mid-level winds and loop those up as well. Because again, we have a trough digging in from the south central United States, which is going to be a big factor. This trough should pick up Helene, okay, and push it slightly east of north at the very end, which is why it should shove just a little bit farther east and north. The interesting thing about this is this feature, this trough, is also going to aid in Helene trying to get strong closer to landfall, all right? As you have this trough in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, you actually get a lot of lift on this southeast side. So there's going to be a lot of lift inherent in the atmosphere. There's going to be very little wind shear. You're going to get good upper level divergence, meaning the storm is going to be able to clear itself as it continues to progress vertically in the atmosphere. And unfortunately, all the ingredients are there for Helene to become one of those storms that gets very strong prior to landfall and gets very strong in short order as well. So these are the isobars that you see, and you can see how quickly and significantly Helene wraps up here on the GFS model, okay? So I wanted to show you guys that because, again, this trough is still into play. The very interesting thing about this trough is as Helene moves up, this trough may actually spin around Helene, and there could be a very broad, what we would call Fujiwara effect, if you will, between these two systems and kind of spin Helene inland over the eastern United States. I do want you to note that it is not forecast to move east back over the open water of the Atlantic. It is forecast to move inland with a ton of potential for inland flooding, river flooding, and just localized flooding for a good portion of the southeast United States. So let me get rid of those isobars and let's just go kind of stair step a few of these things that I want to talk about here. First thing is first, back to what's happening right now. Again, on this track, let me just loop this back up here. On this track, and we're going to go back to the beginning here, the significant rainfall will continue potentially for Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Cuba, portions of the Yucatan, and portions of Central America. Again, there's also another area, a hurricane here, moving in towards Acapulco, which is bringing heavy rain along the Pacific side of Central America. So it's a 1-2 punch. But for Helene itself, more impacts would be felt central and east. So Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Cuba, several inches of rain. Again, some of this because we're close enough, heavier feeder bands and some strong winds spiraling back into Cancun and Cozumel on our Wednesday. And I want you to notice, friends, this is early Thursday morning. The forward speed that Helene could have on Thursday could be very rapid. Well, we're talking about it being a position here Wednesday night and then making landfall right around sunset in the Big Bend of Florida. Very fast forward speed. That's also going to bring the potential for some significant storm surge all the way up the west coast of Florida. So that's what it looks like as far as the reflectivity. Let's take a look at the winds. These are going to be your winds that are going to be sustained in miles an hour. And so now we're going to look at that. By the way, while that's just loading up, I can also bring on the forecast models. These are the spaghetti plots. I do want you to note that almost all of these tropical models are very much in agreement, bringing Helene along this cone of uncertainty. That path directly in the center line would be just west of Apalachicola Bay, but anywhere from Destin to the Cedar Key, Citrus County, Crystal River area is within this cone. And there's going to be more impacts east for the peninsula of Florida with some heavy rain and potentially a tornado threat as well. So let's go back over to these winds. The first thing I want to do here is look at, and let me just get rid of these forecast models. Again, we can sit here all day long and talk about this stuff, guys. But just to talk about the winds that could be impacting the Northwest Caribbean. So for Grand Cayman, I'm going to call for some low-end, sustained tropical storm force winds beginning early tomorrow, throughout the day, on Tuesday, maybe lasting into early on Wednesday. Sustained winds here, pushing tropical storm strength. We already had a 40-mile-an-hour wind gust today in Grand Cayman. Wouldn't shock me if we get some wind gusts tomorrow of over 50 miles an hour. Then as we get a little bit deeper in time, and we start to see Helene wrap up a little bit more, notice on the GFS model, the center is actually just a little bit closer to Cancun and Cozumel. And again, now you're getting sustained tropical storm force winds. Again, maybe not as far west as Cancun and Cozumel, but certainly here. And the center staying over open waters is not a good thing. There's no land interaction to slow down Helene from continuing to strengthen, and we really start to see that wrap up. Now, the GFS has this as a high-end tropical storm when the hurricane center starts to make this a hurricane. So we start to actually see that the GFS might be slightly behind, but not much farther in time. It does begin to pick up, getting close to hurricane strength. Now, notice this track. It's right up the west coast of Florida. We're going to look at these wind vectors coming up in a minute, but all my friends along the west coast of Florida know that this is going to come with some storm surge. And now we start to get into the real hurricane force winds. High-end Cat 1 low end Cat 2. Now, as we get towards Thursday afternoon and evening, now you're starting to push here, very high end Cat 2. Again, 110 is the peak of Cat 2 mile per hour, 111 is Cat 3. The official forecast from the Hurricane Center right here is for 115 mile an hour winds. The GFS is close. It's slightly just weaker than that. And again, landfall a little bit east of the center of circulation on Thursday evening. Let's take a look at the full perspective of this. This is the GFS deterministic model, latest run. Again, tropical storm to a hurricane and then a high-end Cat 2 on the GFS, but we're pushing Cat 3 even on the GFS. And I'm going to show you some models which make it, unfortunately, a lot stronger than that. There is very little that's going to stop Helene on this track throughout the day on Thursday from getting very, very strong in short order. Let's look at the wind vectors. This is going to be the wind direction, all right? We're going to look at both the speed of the winds, but the wind direction. And this is important for my friends along the west coast of Florida, because you're going to start to see that these are onshore winds. You would expect that, right? Counterclockwise winds as Helene moves north, all onshore winds. So we have storm surge watches already up for the Dry Tortugas and south, the lower Keys. It's just going to go right up the coast, and these numbers, unfortunately, could be exceptional. If you live in flood-prone areas along the west coast of Florida, you really need to start paying attention. Obviously, we'll have a bit of an offshore wind to begin with, but as Helene moves up and then into the Big Bend, all of these winds, including Tampa Bay and Fort Myers and Sarasota and Port Charlotte, will all be onshore, right? And then for the Nature Coast, home of Sassa Springs, Crystal River, we all know Cedar Key, or if you don't know Cedar Key, it's basically a little peninsula, a little island out here exposed, and they are going to see some incredible winds. And we can query these winds, by the way, on this product. So you're looking at here sustained winds in green of over 90 miles an hour right there, okay? And if I go back in time, you'll see these winds, and again, just the numbers. But here's the problem. For Tampa Bay, it's a 50 mile an hour due south wind pushing water right up to the upper bay, okay? Thursday evening, 5 o'clock. That's going to be the problem with this, guys, is that as Helene moves north, all the winds behind it turn out of the south and southwest, and there's going to be a lot of water inundation for the west coast of Florida. So that's another big issue, right? Major hurricane, exceptionally, potentially catastrophic impacts for portions of the eastern panhandle, Big Bend, but there's going to be a lot of storm surge. And oh, by the way, there's going to be a tornado threat for the peninsula as well as these storms move on and they rotate. This is also not pleasant to look at, but these are our tropical models running, okay? That high pink is Cat 5. A couple of them try and make it Cat 5. The majority are Cat 3, Cat 4, okay? A few Cat 2, Cat 3, into Cat 4. And again, the official forecast from the Hurricane Center is Category 3 winds of 115, right? This storm is going to get strong in a hurry, all right? Peaking here again on Thursday, and then obviously dropping quickly as it moves farther and farther inland. Everything I've shown you is from the GFS deterministic model. Here's the European deterministic model. Really slow loop here, guys. So again, into tomorrow, we get a developing tropical storm. West of Grand Cayman, east of Cancun and Cozumel, slips right in between West Cuba and the eastern tip of Quintana Roo, and then continues to develop. Now, the European model continues to be weaker than basically all the other models. Still a hurricane, but not as strong, not as intense. That being said, European model, especially before we actually, we're starting to get a true center of circulation, but sometimes it can be weak compared to the other ones, and it just plays catch up. I mean, it was much weaker 24 hours ago. Now it's stronger, and it's not going to shock me if it's another category or two up for this time tomorrow. The European sometimes plays catch up as far as potential strength goes. These are three different models that I'm going to show you, and this is simply for informational purposes. But there are three different models that absolutely bomb this storm out. This is the HMON model. This is Thursday afternoon. This is getting close to that cross city area, and that is a central pressure of 930 millibars. Again, I don't want to put a lot of weight into one that's making this a category 5, but I'm going to show you the HWRF, which also has a pressure of around 930, I believe that's 932, and the HAFS A, which I believe is like 925. You've got three different tropical models, high resolution models here, that have this storm as a intense major hurricane. I can't stress enough that if you live in these areas, and again, we did this with Hurricane Debbie. This is not the most populated area for sure, but if you live in these areas, you got to start taking this serious, and I mean in a heartbeat, guys. You got to get your hurricane preps. And again, even as far east as Tampa Bay is just on the east side of that cone of uncertainty. Again, it's just a line on the map right now. All of the west coast of Florida and the Panhandle, the Gulf Coast of Florida needs to pay very, very close attention to this. This is obviously going to come with some double-digit wave heights building. We could see some double-digit waves near the Cayman Islands. Again, right off of Cancun, Cozumel, Tulum, western Cuba, and then double-digit waves, not only along the eastern Gulf Coast, but some of that wave activity could even slip into the western side of the Atlantic as well. Now, again, the storm itself is moving inland, but obviously extremely high wind and waves coming in with this storm. So this is the peak storm surge forecast for now. It's going to be subject to change in a lot of additional areas. This is just the first spot. So you have, again, the Florida Keys, 1 to 3 foot storm surge, okay? And this storm surge forecast actually does go into the upper Keys, including Key Largo. So the tropical storm watch is just for the lower Keys right now, but the 1 to 3 foot storm surge does include the upper Keys as well, Key Largo, down towards Island Barada, and then Marathon, and all the way towards Key West. So the entire Keys, and then 1 to 3 feet for the dry Tortugas. Rainfall totals, again, are going to be an issue. They're going to be a problem. For the Cayman Islands, 6 to 8 inches or locally higher is possible. Same thing for Western Cuba. Jamaica right now is probably going to be more in that 2 to 4 inch range, or 50 to 100 millimeters with some higher amounts. Again, you guys are just on the eastern edge of where we expect that heaviest rain to be. That would then go into Western Cuba and then up the west coast of Florida and then into the Big Bend Eastern Panhandle, where again, they could get 6, 8, maybe even 12 inches of rain locally. It just depends. So the flooding threat comes along for the ride as well. So again, I wanted to kind of just reiterate what we're looking at here one more time. We have potential tropical cyclone number 9, forecast to quickly become a tropical depression, and then tropical storm Helene. More than likely, that's both going to happen in the next 24 hours. This is then forecast to become a hurricane as it exits the Northwest Caribbean and into the southern Gulf of Mexico. That would be late Tuesday night, late Wednesday night, and then into Thursday morning. So it's actually very slow in the short term. But then throughout the day on Thursday, it is just forecast to rapidly pick up forward speed and strength and move quickly into the Eastern Panhandle or the Big Bend of Florida. I want to go back over to the reflectivity just one more time, because I also again want to mention, I talked about it here briefly, but anywhere on the eastern side of this, the storm surge, the heavy rain, and the tornado threat will come along for the entire peninsula of Florida. Look, even the Northwest Bahamas will see some feeder bands out of this. Unlike Francine and Debbie, which were really small, compact storms, Helene is going to be a big one. It's going to be a monster as far as what it could bring, but also how large it's going to be. So for Nassau and Freeport and Lucaya on Grand Bahama and Walker's Key and Abaco and the Bimini area and South Florida, we could see some very heavy rainfall out of Helene as well, all right? It's going to be wet, squally weather, kind of late Wednesday throughout the day on Thursday. And again, the inherent rotation will lead to the potential for some tornadic activity. So I'm going to be keeping a very, very close eye on that. Again, if you live in these areas, you need to take this extremely seriously, especially if you're on this cone of uncertainty. But again, to be clear, that cone does get close to the Tampa area. So if you live in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Sarasota, Bradenton, you just got to keep an eye on this, and then up to the Nature Coast as well. My hometown of Crystal River, keep a close eye on this, into the Big Bend. All of these areas are still potential landfall with what could be a major hurricane. Again, official from the Hurricane Center, that's what we've got. Okay, so that is all of the newest information on potential tropical cyclone number 9, which is forecast to become Helene, all right? Obviously, I'm going to keep you guys very, very much updated on that. We're going to now get into the rest of the forecast. I'm going to do something here real quick, guys, so we can do that as well. And again, you have a specific question or concern, drop it in the comments section below. I'm happy to answer that. While you're down there, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing. So let's talk about the rest of our area here. We've had some rain trying to develop over portions of the Windward Islands for today. Trinidad towards Tobago, you can see some of those showers and storms, the live lightning data here at Meteo Mundo. I'll bring that lightning counter back on for us here, hopefully. Let's see. Okay, maybe not. You can still see the lightning strikes. But anyway, heavier rain. Trinidad, Tobago, decent lightning from time to time. Feel like I now have it off. Let's see if I can bring it back on. There we go. Oh, you know what? There we go. Now it'll come back on. A couple different things I did made it turn off. No big deal. So, passing downpours. Trinidad, portions of Tobago, trying to get towards Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados. Not everyone's going to see them, but those are the areas that we've had that. Martinique, trying to get a few showers there, but it's been mainly dry. You get up towards Dominica, again, Guadeloupe, passing showers there. And that's exactly what we've had. Remember, I mentioned a 30 to a 40% chance of rain in this area. Not only have I gotten some pictures out of the Northwest Caribbean, I got this great picture from Barbie King I wanted to share you. This is from yesterday. This is the island just off of Guadeloupe, and I apologize, I forget the name, but she said they were heading to Guadeloupe and they caught this. Again, the island right off of Guadeloupe. Look at that beautiful double rainbow. Appreciate Barbie sending me in that picture. You can send one in as well, mymeteomundo@gmail.com. By the way, and I'll put it in the comment section below, this is where she was, just off of the mainland of Guadeloupe, okay? So again, a couple of scattered showers, a little bit of lightning towards Antigua at the hour, Montserrat, Barbuda. We're having to try to get a couple of showers over over the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. We've had a little bit of rain develop over Puerto Rico for today. If you've got some of these showers, let me know. You can see some decent lightning here in the central part of the island, and those showers kind of flared up with the heat of the day, and then they've died back down. And then again, we've had a few storms on the Dominican Republic side of Hispaniola for today, but obviously the richer tropical moisture has been over the Haitian side, Port-au-Prince, on over towards Lacaille, and we've already talked about how wet it's been in our far western areas. The Bahamas for today have been relatively quiet, okay? Drier air is kind of entrained in right now. A few showers are possible on the southeast side there, especially down towards Matthewtown, and then for the Turks and the Caicos as well. Please note that we do have an area of red to discuss, and we're going to do that right now. So we have another tropical wave coming off the West African coast. This one, again, has a high likelihood of development. It's a 70% chance, all right? Notice that the formation zone from the Hurricane Center begins that north latitude trek well to the east of the Lesser Antilles. So I hope that this ends up being a fish storm. We'll take a look at this on the model as well. I'm going to extend it out a little bit farther in time. We'll basically go out a week and then loop this up. So again, for this one, we're more than likely going to get a named storm. So the biggest thing is we need to get this away from any landmass, and that looks to be the case. You can see it developing right here, and then even on the GFS model, it turns quicker north than what the formation zone has. At this point in time, I'm not expecting this one to directly impact any landmass. Those are the kind of ones that we like to see. For the Lesser Antilles, we stay with that 30 to 40% chance. Once again, localized winds could feed in some heavier rain from time to time, but nothing is going to be very concentrated. Everything's going to be very localized in nature. So you catch some of these heavier showers, that's a good thing for you to cool things off. My friends in the ABC Islands, apologize for that. Again, isolated showers or storms there, but mainly dry. The heat continues. Daytime highs 33, 34 degrees Celsius almost each and every day. Trying to get a few showers to develop in San Juan and Ponce, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, Virgin Gorda, Joost van Dyke in the British Virgin Islands. But again, fairly isolated, nothing extremely concentrated. You catch one of these downpours, you're doing pretty good. The rain will also begin to shut off in the Dominican Republic and Haiti because, as you would imagine, as Helene consolidates, it's going to start taking all of this moisture and wrapping it back around the center of circulation. So again, we get drier in Haiti and the Dominican Republic and the Turks and Caicos, where we could still have some decent downpours for Jamaica, Cuba, obviously the Cayman Islands, and then into Florida, where again, the western side and the northwest side of the Bahamas could have some heavier rain. I showed you the European model rainfall totals just real quick because I can. And again, do it because you can kind of situation. This is what the GFS model is painting on. And please note again, it is bringing some exceptionally high rainfall totals right over Grand Cayman. Not nearly as much over Little Cayman and Cayman Brac, but right over Grand Cayman because it's on the east side of the center. So if you live in Grand Cayman, that is one area that I'm concerned about for the potential flooding issue there. It doesn't bring as much over Jamaica, but I think there's going to be more than that. And then of course, right up the chute, potentially some very heavy rainfall on the tip, the northeast tip of the Yucatan, including Cancun and Cozumel. I mean, could we get more than 8 inches of rain? It's possible, but I hope it's not as much. Then there's a sharp cutoff as you get south of Tulum. Places like Belize and Roatan and Honduras in general, we'll get some showers out of this. And again, on the Pacific side, because of that storm, there could be exceptionally heavy rainfall on the Pacific side of Central America and Mexico as well. And again, right up the coast here into Florida, where we could again have 6, 8, and locally higher amounts than that. For the peninsula of Florida outside of the cone, it would be more about the potential for the tornadic activity. Obviously, friends, it's going to be a busy week here at Meteo Mundo, and I appreciate your support. You want to follow us across all social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. Again, want to send me a picture or video, mymetiomundo@gmail.com. Specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comment section below. Like and subscribe while you are there. Again, PTC number 9, forecast to become Helene, then forecast to become a major hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico late Wednesday and into Thursday, with direct impact for the Gulf Coast of Florida. But again, heavy rain impacts for the Northwest Caribbean here over the next couple of days as well. I'll keep you updated to get all the news information coming your way for tomorrow. So until then, be kind, be safe, be weather aware, and I'll keep you updated right here at Meteo Mundo.